Finding what action means, immediately you mobilize a lot of resistance. And so this is going to be our task, yours and mine, in the next years, to translate this fundamental understanding in our society that we need to act into concrete measures that society is willing to embrace. That's a politician's task, but politicians can't do that on their own. We need you, every single one of you, from the different disciplines, to make that happen. I was in a small conference last night, and there was a politician from the Czech Republic whom I've known for decades, with a completely different political outlook, who said, you want to go too fast. People will not buy it. It's going to be too hard for them. They're already in a problematic, and then you're going to tell them that they need to pay more for their energy, that they need to isolate their homes, etc., etc. They're not going to buy into that. Now, my counter-argument to this is, and he says, the poor people will suffer in this transition. The one big flaw in this reasoning is the idea that if we don't do anything, nothing will change. We have to get rid of this illusion that by doing nothing, everything will stay the same. Mother Nature is telling us on a daily basis, she's fed up with us. She's telling us, I'm going to give you warnings and more warnings and more warnings, but when are you going to heed the call and act? This weather isn't normal. It isn't. And some will say, global warming, look how cold it is. It's erratic. And it's going to be increasingly erratic, and the cost of erratic weather will be higher than the cost of the transition to low-emission economy. And this is point we need to drive home. So the first thing we need to do is to convince people that this transition is not an option, but a necessity. And then we have to find, and this is going to be the task of this new commission, a number of areas where we can make this transition interesting, and we can show to people that this is something they can buy into because it's in their interest. And it's also literally and also metaphorically affordable. In this context, we have to look at the different situations in different member states. Not every country is equal, not every challenge is equal, and there is not one size fits for all solution. And let me be very clear, hydrogen will play a huge role, but hydrogen on its own is not the silver bullet that will solve the problem. So, if you look at Central and Eastern Europe, people are always saying, it's going to be so difficult convincing people there. I am absolutely not sure that's true. I actually think it isn't true. Why? Talk to people in Poland, in the Czech Republic, in Slovakia, in Hungary. Talk to them directly and ask them what they think of the air quality in their cities. And they will feel the urgency. But if you talk to people in Southern Europe, very often their most felt urgency is climate adaptation. Because of erratic weather, because of desertification, because of this phenomenon in Spain of gota fria that used to happen once every 50 years and now seems to be happening every year. So we, as we are present in this hall, we all need to also tailor the responses to the different needs of the different member states as part of a holistic plan to make this transition happen. And in this context, and this is what I said in my hearing, and I want to repeat that here today, I see a pivotal role for hydrogen, for clean hydrogen. I see it because clean hydrogen is an area where Europe is still leading, marginally leading, but still leading. Why are we marginally leading? Because others are catching up, which isn't bad. But hey, let's try and develop a bit of pride that we should keep leading on this. We're not leading on batteries. We missed that opportunity years ago. We are now trying to catch up with that. But why not extend the lead on something that could be one of the most important solutions in our energy transition? And I'll give you a couple of ideas why I think it is important. It is important because hydrogen could be applied using a lot of infrastructure we already have. Whereas the problem we will have with other forms of renewable energy, solar and wind, in the coming years, is that because we had such a concentration on providing the tools for creating that energy, and frankly, speaking globally, we neglected the fact that for this to be, for this to work, we need networks. We need the grids. And there we have a shortcoming. And hydrogen is interesting because there the grids could be, in large parts of Europe, much easily adapted from the traditional fossil fuels for hydrogen. And even if we are savvy with our technology, a combination of fossil and hydrogen could be used in the grids. Because, as I said, there is not one silver bullet, and we will have a mix of energy sources over a longer period of time, including, sadly, also fossil fuel, as long as it isn't coal and as long as we decrease oil. Fossil fuel will also be, for a longer period of time, part of the mix. We have to be realistic about that. And in this context, I think hydrogen is the most interesting option to let Europe lead and to point to early successes. Now, I have now, in the preparation for my new responsibilities, been talking to quite a lot of people who are active in this field or active in other fields to make this transition happen. And what is the one thing that always comes out, and let me be very clear about this, the one thing that always comes out is we want to do this, but sometimes to get the permission or to get the okay or to get the permits or to get the whatever takes 3, 4, 5 times longer than actually executing the project. And so my first promise to you is I will look into this to make sure that we speed up all the processes, political and administrative, to get things going. But I also make the promise that we will do this also by applying due diligence, what I would say, by applying substantial impact assessment, including your expertise in that impact assessment, so that we don't make the wrong choices and that we make informed choices and that we put our money to good use when we make these informed choices. Secondly, we need to increase the money we spend on research in this area. And I will certainly try and make it happen so that we invest it more quickly. But then also, market forces will have to be part of that. Because we are reaching a point where this becomes economically viable without government support. And I don't want to, because I think in some areas of solar and wind energy, we sort of overshot. And that money could have been put to good use elsewhere because it's, wind and solar is more or less paying for itself now, and we shouldn't be putting taxpayers' money into something that can be made viable without taxpayers' money. So also here, we have to make sure it is tailored very precisely to our goals. The most important thing, however, is that you help us find ways to also show, I would say, relatively quick successes. Nothing works better than to show to people that it works and that we have successes. To just tell to people invest in this and 10 years down the road you will see the results, it's just not good enough. I got a single-use plastic strategy through the European Parliament in 8 months, which is at record speed, because there was massive public support. And why was there massive public support? Because people understood that they could save sea life, sea mammals, just by not using plastic straws anymore, doing other concrete things they can contribute to. And we need to look for subjects in the energy sector that would have the same effect.